Before we jump into today's show, I just wanted to let you know that I have got a brand new 3-part audio series available to download right now. If you head over to donnaeade.com/3-part audio, that's all one word, no spaces, you can download your How to Build Your Authority with Podcasting audio series. This is going to address guesting and hosting. So if you're interested in either of those and you want to know how to build your authority, head over to donnaeade.com/3-part audio. The link will be in the show notes. You're listening to the Mindset and Action Podcast, the place to be to grow and streamline your business. I'm your host, Donna Eade. Let's jump into the show. Networking is the art of building and maintaining connections for shared positive outcomes. Devorah Sack. Welcome to the podcast, everybody. I'm so excited to have you here today. And I am also very excited to bring you another fabulous guest. Sarah, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
I am so excited. And I always love it when I get a friend from across the pond to come because I just love the accent. I could just literally listen to you all day.
It's so funny because that's what Americans say about you guys, you know?
It is. It's so true. It's so true. It's
Oh
a nice way
gosh.
to work. It's a nice way to work. So tell us who you are and what it is that you do.
Of course. Yeah. So what's up? I'm Sarah Gemmell. I am an expert networking strategist. Usually my day-to-day is like the queen of networking. And what that really means is that I help entrepreneurs, teams, individuals who are actively networking to see a better ROI from that time in networking, right? We all know networking is super time consuming. We spend a lot of time in meetings and coffee chats and all these things. And it doesn't always feel like it's producing, but it should. Like it's a really, really effective way to generate leads and grow your audience if you're doing it the right way. So I come in and I'm usually making really small tweaks, but inserting more strategy, more systems, so that you can laser focus on exactly what rooms to be in, who are your power partners, how can you leverage the connections you're making, how can you follow up with people and nurture people in a way that allows for you to like really see that business growth. So that's what I do now. But I got here, I was actually an addictions counselor out of college. I dealt with substance abuse. I have a degree in psychology. Like I'm a total psych nerd, love geeking out on psychology. And when I got out of addictions, I actually went into fitness and I became a personal trainer and, got into that whole thing. And that's where I discovered entrepreneurship. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm like, okay, cool. I can start this entrepreneur thing. And it got me into online entrepreneurship. And I started really discovering all these things in the entrepreneur world. And I went to one singular event in Florida. And I had no idea what I was going for. I just really liked the girl that was hosting the event. So I was like, yeah, sure. Like, here's my money. Didn't know what I was going to. And it ended up being this conference, right? And I got so much out of being there. And I was like, why have I been sitting in my house trying to grow my business on Instagram? And I'm like, I need to be out talking to people, and I went home and I had all these things. So I started networking on a weekly basis. And I just started going to like all different kinds of meetings and conferences. And what ended up happening was I ended up building a global fitness platform through the pandemic. And I was able to go 100% self-employed. Within the first 30 days of going 100% self-employed, I tripled my income. And my main lead generator was networking. Like that was the one thing I was really good at, right? But I realized that because I was good at making friends, I'm good at talking to people, I was building a lot of connections and I was going to a lot of meetings, but like they weren't all producing. And that's where this strategy came from. So I started to really look at like, okay, what is the psychology behind how people make a referral? Right? What is the psychology behind successful networking and how people feel connected and how they're going to start introducing you? Because networking is not sales. I'm not here to sell the person I'm talking to. I'm here to get them to put me in front of a new opportunity.
Yeah.
So that's how I got here. I have 3 cats and 2 horses, and I'm actually 6 months pregnant with my first human child.
Oh, wow. Congratulations. Fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
We actually
my life is
it's full. Full on.
I was saying, yeah, my life is a little crazy right now. It's okay.
Well, we've got one of the fur babies is actually making an appearance on camera. And while Sarah was talking there, she did so professionally. The cat decided to climb up her back and come onto the table, and the cat just disappeared. And you wouldn't have heard any difference in Sarah's toes. Total professional. Absolutely love it. So yeah,
Oh
so,
my
so
gosh.
she's standing you in good stead for when the baby comes, because they're a whole new
Right, except at least the cats have learned to be quiet,
Just move the baby over there, it's fine.
Just like real nonchalant, like
yeah,
she'll pop up behind me and then you'll randomly see like a different cat pop up in 5 minutes and you're like, wait a minute, that wasn't the same one.
That's not the same cat. Love it. Oh dear, they do like to get involved. They do like to get involved. I am really excited to have you here to have this conversation, because I run an online networking group myself for Business Women Unlimited, and it's so much fun. And just like you, I've done my numbers, and 89% of my clients come through networking, and I would like to see a better return on my investment in that. I would like to see more clients, and if that number is my number, I would like to see more of my clients coming through that. So I think there's definitely room for improvement when it comes to my strategy. So I'm really excited to dive into this conversation. So first of all, I thought we would start with always the fun one. I always like to go to the worst. What are people doing wrong? What are the biggest mistakes you see people making when it comes to networking? And I can see if I make any of them.
Yeah. And to be honest with you, I made all of these mistakes too. But there's a few like top mistakes that get in people's way when it comes to networking. And the first and foremost thing is going in with wrong intention or the wrong mindset around networking. Right. So the mindset of networking is sales, or the intention of going into a room of like, I'm looking for my next client. Right. I'm looking for my next client. I'm looking for who's going to buy for me. I'm looking to take. Like, what am I getting out of this? And then when you go into that space, you show up now with Eureka commission breath, right? You show up, you have this energy where people are not attracted to you. They're not magnetized to you. They're not drawn to you. They're actually repelled because it feels like a sales pitch. Like, that's the one thing we all hate about networking, but it's one of the most common things I see is that intention. So instead of going in and doing that, it's going in with the intention of how can I build mutually beneficial relationships? So how can I also be looking out for how I can give, right? I want to make sure that if I'm in a space that I can also give value to these people here, not just take from them. And I'm not looking necessarily to sell you, right? So if you and I are in a networking meeting and you and I are talking, my brain is not thinking about how can I sell Donna into a program. It's just, I'm going to tell her what I do, tell her who I'm looking to get connected to. Maybe I'm looking to get connected to a certain audience or a certain type of event or whatever, right? If you say to me, Sarah, that's me, I need your help with my networking strategy, I'm like, cool. That's like a bonus, right?
Yeah.
But I'm going to allow for you to come to me to say that. And when I come to you and I say, Donna, here's what I'm looking for, right? Like, here's exactly what I'm looking to do. Here's the opportunity I'm looking for. You can now say, if you're not interested in buying it, you're like, oh, I'm going to introduce you to this person. I'm going to invite you to this event. You need to be in this Facebook group. And now it's a conversation of sharing resources instead of you feeling like I'm just trying to pitch you.
Yeah.
So that is like first and foremost. The second one is going in without a strategy. So not having prepared before time, going in and just winging it. Like, how many times do you start giving your intro and you kind of black out a little bit because you didn't prepare? So you just start rambling, right? You're like, okay, not sure what I said. But not really having that strategy in place for when you actually show up to a networking meeting, whether it's your intro, your call to action, those kinds of things, but also not strategically following up with people, which goes into that third mistake of not nurturing people the right way, right? Not spending the time to really nurture your power partners before asking them for something or before trying to go in for a big ask or whatever, right? So in your strategy, you have tracking metrics, creating follow-up systems, how you're going to give your intro, what you're going to ask for. Like your introduction should be so strategic every time you go to a networking meeting, because if you start laundry listing all your offers, or you list, 5 different opportunities that you're looking for, no one's going to remember. Mm. Right. So if you give these intros that are too broad, or maybe it's the same intro every time, it's an intro that just doesn't resonate with that audience. It's an ask that doesn't resonate with that audience. Like those are all the things I look at. Right. And then having the follow-up systems on the back end, tracking your metrics to know exactly which meetings you're going to that are actually producing. Like when I'm deciding where I'm going to spend time, I need to know that this group is actually giving me an ROI. This group is not. And I look at why, right? And then that nurturing side of things, like really spending time nurturing people. I do it with systems. I have systems in place to keep track of people, right? Because I'm not going to manually remember 100 people, and much less more than that, right? Like I meet so many new people every month. I'm not just going to remember them by name and remember to go to Instagram and like, oh, I'm going to go to Donna's profile and show her some love. I want to, but I also have terrible ADHD. So there's no way that's happening, right? So having these systems in place of ways to track your people, ways to track your data, really helps in laser focusing, so you're not wasting your time.
Yeah, I think that's something I notice a lot with people, especially in the kind of areas where I network, is that people kind of have this aversion to making it systematized. Like they feel like that's almost leaning onto the scammy salesperson. It's like leaning into that thing where 100%. It's like, what am I trying to get out of it? And I think that's quite a struggle for people to see, that it's not about you doing this because you need to get something out of it, but it is about building those relationships and allowing you to do that in a more organic way. But you need those reminders, because it is so easy. Like we're busy, nobody's going to remember to go to your profile and like your stuff.
Right. And I think that's like a really important piece of the mindset behind networking is you can have systems and automation and still be authentic and genuine. Like you can still prioritize people. You can still be heart-centered. You can still keep people above profit and have systems and automation to keep up with them. There's a way to do both, where I think a lot of people, like you said, they think of systems and automation as so cold. And it's really not. Right. But at the very, here's like a really good little nugget. At the very, very least, if you're someone who doesn't want to do systems, just set up an automation that only notifies you. So instead of sending like email notifications to the person, or text marketing or chat bots or whatever, you can literally just set up notifications to yourself every 6 weeks, or, 1 week for the first time, and then 6 weeks, and then 6 months of like, hey, talk to this person. Hey, nurture this person. Hey, check in with this person. And now you're the only one getting the system notifications, but it's still automated. It's still a system, right?
Yeah. And it's just allowing you to be reminded. It's like having a VA say, hey, have you reached out to so-and-so lately? Because they were a really good contact. You never know what's going on with them. Find out what's going on. Exactly. And I love that. It's so good. And I want to tell you a little story actually about a lady who does not do this well. So I got a message on my Facebook last night from somebody who literally was asking for my help. She was like, I've got this new thing coming out and I'd really appreciate it if you would share it. And she's reaching out in my DMs, and I'm like, she's brave to do that, for one, because I'm not one to do that. I don't tend to ask for help when I need it. And that's, so I feel like impressed by her that she's done it. But then I also realized that the only time she reaches out to me is when she wants something from me. So when I scroll back to the next message, it was, I'm running this challenge. Are you going to come along? And I said, no, I'm not interested in that challenge at the moment. She said, okay, no worries. But when I went back to the beginning of that bit of conversation, it was a message with, hi, how are you doing? I saw that you were doing X. And then I responded and she was like, oh, great, cool. And then she sent me oh, I'm doing this challenge. Come and join me. And then she sent this one with no preamble. I mean, she said, how are you at the beginning of the message, but I'm just like, you only message me when you want something. I think I'm going to unfriend you.
Right. And that's the one thing we have to be so careful of. Like, when you don't spend the time nurturing and you're only reaching out to people when you have an ask, and then not only are you reaching out with only an ask, but how you do it is so disingenuous, you are going to be remembered for that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, people notice that, like, exactly like the first message you said, where she's like, I see you're doing this. And she shows this like fake interest in what you're doing for one message just to then pitch you something. That is networking not done right.
Yeah.
Right? Like, your people want to feel like you actually care about them. And every once in a while, you really just need to send a message that's like, oh, I see you're doing this thing. How's it going? Nothing about you, right? There is no follow-up to ask for something, sell something, talk about yourself. Ask your people about them with no hidden agenda.
Yeah.
You really should never have a hidden agenda, right? But like, I'm so okay with sending a message like that of like, hey, I have this challenge. Do you mind sharing it? If you and I have a really good relationship, if I know that I've nurtured you the way that I've nurtured you, right?
Yeah.
That is such a good example of please don't do that.
Yeah, and it's true, because there are a lot of people in my network that if they sent me something like that, I would 100% just go, absolutely sure, no worries, I'll share it. In fact, I've got a couple of people that we both said to each other, you know, when you're doing something, just tag me in it so I can share it, because I want to support you, but I'm not always seeing your stuff, which is always the way. But that's getting that permission and building that relationship to that point where that's a thing. So yeah.
Yes, because when you build a relationship with someone, they want to support you. Like, they want you to tell them how they can support you, right? They want you to make it as easy as possible with a tag, or like send it directly to them, or directly ask them, you know?
Yeah.
And it's funny because that lady's whole system could actually work really, really well. So it's not the system itself that's not recommended. It's like, there just needs to be tweaks to like what her intention is, what her messaging is, what her delivery is, right? Like, that's the whole thing about what I do, is we're not making these like huge, you know, business changing changes. It's little tweaks. So yes, still send the message, but instead of asking for something, ask them about themselves. Right. And it's like just these small little tweaks to what you're already doing, which is what I think makes what I do so powerful, because I don't have to add a bunch of time to people's schedule, right? I don't have to like put them through a course. I don't have to add hours of learning. It's like, cool, you're already sending a message. You're already in the networking meeting. Like, just make a tiny little tweak, and people are not going to be totally turned off by you to where they want to like never talk to you ever again. Like, when you see that lady in person, you're going to run the other way.
Absolutely.
You don't want to talk to her. Right? Like, and that's not the reputation we want.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Okay. So when you have spoken about networking, and when I've sort of looked at the stuff that you're doing, you talk about turning your network into your audience, which I think is another thing that, you know, one of our big ethoses behind Business Women Unlimited is, you know, you do not add people to your email list. Don't do it. It's spammy. It's not what we're about. We're about building connections. So when you talk about turning your network, your network into your audience, what do you mean by that, and how can we do it? Because I think that a lot of us do network with people that would be an amazing client of ours, and we'd love to have them on our email list and become part of our audience, but we don't want to just add them. We don't want to be spammy pammies. We want to make sure that we're doing it in an authentic way. So fill us in.
Oh my gosh, I'm definitely keeping spammy Pammy in the back of my brain, because I will be using that. That's brilliant. But here's the thing about networking, right? Those people are allowed to be your ideal clients. You're allowed to want to work with them. It's all about your approach. Your approach is going to be much more nonchalant. It's going to take a lot more time. And it's your job as the business owner to show your referral partners your value, and to be having a really strong marketing strategy so that when they follow you on Instagram, they see exactly what you do. You have a really strong presence. You provide a lot of value, testimonials, whatever it is, right? Allow for them to see that content on their own and make their own decisions, right? If you put out into the world that you have a free masterclass, that's your opt-in, and that's your way to get people on your email list, talk about it, right? You're going to talk about it when you show up to networking meetings. You're going to talk about it on your social media. allow for them to make that decision. Give that autonomy to your referral partners. It's okay to say that they're an ideal client, but you're not forcing it on them, right? And I think a lot of people want to skip that piece where they don't want to provide that value. They don't want to have that marketing strategy. They just want to meet you, get your email in a networking meeting, and then just add you to something because it's quicker and because it's easier, right? So when you go into a networking meeting, whether it's in person or virtual, you're growing your audience online, right? On social media, you're sending them somewhere to connect with them. That's building your audience right there. Then you have these strategic ways to ask your network for help that also build your audience. So can they share to a Facebook group? Can they tag someone on a post? Even if your networking partner just goes and puts a comment on one of your Instagram posts, it still boosts your algorithm. It still boosts you out to other people. It gets other people commenting. Now you're growing your audience, right? They can invite you to other events. Other events allow you to grow your audience. So you have to look at that bigger picture of how can this person get me in front of new people? And we want to have really easy ways to do that. You don't have to have me on your podcast just to help me grow my audience. You don't have to give me a speaking opportunity just for me to meet new people, because that's a big ask. And chances are, if someone has a podcast or if they have a group where they have speakers, they're getting pitched that a lot. They have a lot of people who want to speak on their podcast and speak on their stage, whether it's virtual or in person. Come up with something different, right? It's almost like sometimes I see in networking groups, there's a lot of people who want to be on podcasts, which is great. Obviously, I love being on podcasts. But I noticed that the podcast hosts will kind of shy away from talking about their podcast because it's like the anticipation of the pitch. You hear all these people saying, put me on your podcast, put me on your podcast, put me on your podcast. And you're like, I'm just going to not mention that I have a podcast because I don't want to be bombarded. That's not what we want, right? So that's how I look at growing audiences, and then just being really strategic in my overall marketing to make sure that I'm constantly talking about my offers, constantly talking about what I do publicly to then allow for them to make that decision on their own.
Yeah. I love that. And I love the way you kind of talk, one of the things that I've always taken away from my networking is it's not the person in front of you, it's who they know. And so I think when you look at it like that you want to access their network, it's not about selling to them. It's about building a relationship with them where they like you enough to share you with their audience. And that's when it opens up. So I love that kind of, it's much more subtle. It's not a direct ask. It's not like, give me access to your audience. It's like this post that I really want to, boost it up in the algorithm. Could you like that post? And especially on like LinkedIn, for example, really good platform for this, because the number of times I get a notification that somebody has liked something and I'm like connected to the person that's made the comment, not the original poster. So I go over and I look and I'm like, oh, new person, connect.
Yes.
It works.
Yes. Yeah. Even like social, like on LinkedIn, dropping a recommendation or doing social proof or testimonials, that also helps grow your audience. Like figure out these ways to leverage these connections that you're making. And there's such easy ways to do it, where like if you ask someone to comment on your Instagram post, that is not a big ask. That is something super easy that like, I don't need to have a super good relationship with you to go drop a comment on your post.
Yeah.
And that's where I think people get messed up is they go in with such a big ask, like, hey, introduce me to your clients. Hey, have me on your podcast. Hey, buy from me. Those are big asks. Yeah. Even just asking for an introduction to a potential client is a big ask. If you don't have that know, like, trust factor with that referral partner yet, it's probably not going to happen.
Yeah.
But if you say, maybe after a couple of times of meeting someone, if you say, hey, let's do a podcast swap or a blog swap or a newsletter swap, right? So now we're sharing each other's stuff. How easy is that?
Yeah.
Right? People eat that up. They love that stuff. So go in with that kind of collaborative, like bigger picture thinking. It's such a more effective way to grow an audience from networking.
Yeah. I love that. Brilliant. So we're convinced we're going to build our audience with our network. We're not going to make those mistakes. We're going to do it much better. But, it's all a time thing. So how can we simplify the process of getting the best out of networking so that we're not literally spending all of our business time? Because I feel like it could literally, from one networking meeting, potentially, 10 to 15 new connections, you could spend a whole week doing the work that you need to do.
Literally. Yeah, literally. And this is why I say that networking is one of the most time consuming lead generators, right? We all know it's time consuming. But in order to make sure that you're not wasting your time, or you're just spending endless hours in meetings or coffee chats or, whatever, you start with having that strategy that we talked about in the beginning, right? So you're really, really clear on like, who am I looking to get connected to? Where do I want to be hanging out? Who do I want to be talking to? All these things. You get yourself in the right rooms. You give really strategic introductions, really strategic asks. And then from each group meeting, my goal is to always schedule at least one coffee chat, but I'm very, very strategic about who I do coffee chat with. My coffee chat schedule is not open, right? Like, we don't want to just pack out our schedule with people just because they asked to have a coffee chat. So having pre-qualification processes in place, having a structure and setting boundaries around coffee chats, like being really, really intentional. And it's something that seems kind of obvious, but we don't really sit down and think about it until someone prompts us to, right? Like, how many coffee chats do you want to do in a week? How long is the first one going to be? Who are you going to do coffee chats with versus none? Where are you going to leave time for people to do a second coffee chat? Right? There's all these things to consider when it comes to coffee chats, because those are really the powerful, like, one-on-one time. That's where we talk about referrals. That's where we talk about collab ideas, but they're also the most time consuming. That's where we can get really bogged down in our schedules. And then on the back end of that, having the follow-up systems in place, right, allows for you to laser focus on your people, figure out who your people actually are and who they're not, but then taking the time to track those metrics so that you can make data-based decisions when you're deciding where to spend your time, where to go, right? If I'm really busy this month, I'm going to go to my core networking groups where I already have existing relationships. My first goal is always to nurture my existing people. Then I look at strategically adding in new audiences when I have the capacity to do so. If I don't have the capacity to even nurture the people that I already know, why am I trying to add in new people?
Yeah.
Right? Like, you should not be adding in all these new people. A lot of us want to go in and we just want to meet as many new people as possible. But if you're not even nurturing your people yet, you have no business adding in new people. So that's the kind of stuff you look at, of like where, when, who, how you're doing the follow-ups. And that's going to help you really laser focus your efforts into what's actually working. And then you can make those database decisions when things need to change, whether they're being added or subtracted or replaced. Because a lot of times when we don't track those metrics, what happens is we don't really keep track. Right. So networking is such a long game that this person here might lead you to a huge client, but it's like this roundabout way that it gets there. It might have taken 6 months and 6 different connections, but it all rooted back to this one person over here. And when we don't keep track of that really roundabout, long-term, windy road that got us there, I've actually had people come to me and they're like, Sarah, I have to leave this group. It's not working for me. And I'm like, because I also host events. And I'm like, okay, well, I know for a fact that I have passed you at least $5,000 worth of business. You're not tracking that. So in your brain, you feel like you're not getting anything out of it because you're not tracking those metrics. So now you're leaving a group that's actually getting, to me, in my opinion, right? If one connection is sending you $5,000 worth of business, that's a pretty good start to, a group. It's just important to know that data. Yeah. Right. So that you're not wasting time.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a data girl as well. So I love a good spreadsheet. And like I say, I've just recently done a launch. So for me, like doing a launch debrief and looking at that is what led me to go, where have most of my clients come from? So what have I failed to do this time round that's led to not getting as many clients in as I wanted to? And it's been eye-opening actually to look at it and actually track those clients back to their original source and it's been networking. And yeah, only a couple of my clients haven't come from that. So it's amazing to be able to track that information. And you can get really bogged down with tracking so much stuff, but you know, these numbers are really important to doing that, because literally, yeah, like you say, $5,000 and they're like, oh, this isn't working for me. Well, that'd be working for me. I'd be okay. $5,000. I'll be good with that. I'll come to that meeting.
Right. I'm like, wait a minute. And they came from me. Those referrals came from me. I was like, wait a minute. that doesn't seem right, you know?
Tracking,
but I think that like when it comes to data, it doesn't have to be super like in depth. I'm actually not a data person, but I have to be, right? As business owners, we have to be.
Yeah.
But like, just keep track of one little piece of data to start, or even if you just look at like, how much has your email list grown over the last 60 days? Just that one number. How much has your email list grown? Or how much has your social media following grown? Or how many more listeners are on your podcast? If that was your goal when you went into networking, if you spend a whole month networking and your ask is always related to something that gets more eyes on your podcast, right? Different levels, different types of ask, but it's always about getting more listeners on your podcast, then that's the piece of data you should be tracking.
That's a good point. Yeah. Love that.
Mm-hmm.
Love that. And I just, as you were saying that, I was like, oh, I need to be utilizing my CRM a little bit better.
Yeah. I love using my CRM to track these things.
Yeah. Yeah. Really good point. Okay. Awesome. Well, that has been an awesome little insight into how we can better utilize our networking, which I think is so, so important, because I think oftentimes we go into networking, we're looking at making business friends, you know, business can be very lonely when you work for yourself. So we're looking to make those friends and those connections, and we forget that the whole point of networking is to actually grow our businesses, not just make mates. So really important part of it. And it can get lost along the way. So I really appreciate your input on that. Now, I believe that you have got a fabulous checklist that we can use. Tell us about this checklist.
I do. It's like the greatest thing ever because it's short. Okay. It doesn't take a lot of time. I'm your ADHD friend. I'm not adding a bunch of stuff, but basically it's a checklist that allows for you to do a self audit of where in your networking strategy you can focus first. Because when I talk about networking strategy, it's a lot. Like there's a lot of nuanced pieces of it, and it can seem very overwhelming. You don't have to change everything at once. So the checklist is 10 things that walks you through like 10 really important parts of networking strategy, and allows for you to figure out how exactly can you make your networking more profitable, because it's not a one size fits all answer. It's not just like, oh, improve your intro, because your intro might be really, really good. Right. So if your intro is really, really solid, then move on to the next thing. So it really just helps you identify exactly where you can make improvements in your networking strategy, and really get you thinking about the strategy of your networking efforts. Right. No one really talks about networking strategy the way that I do. So it's like, it's not this like I said before, we're not reinventing a wheel. It's not this like groundbreaking information, but we don't think about it without being prompted to think about it.
True.
And just like making these tiny little tweaks and having outside opinions on like, how is my messaging? How is my delivery? How are my systems, right? You might think that your intro is really, really solid, but if it's not resonating with your referral partners, it doesn't mean a thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Brilliant. So I will have that checklist linked below for you. And where can people find you out there on the internet, Sarah?
I'm really easy to find on Instagram at Sarah Gemmell, and from Instagram you can connect with me pretty much anywhere. I'm like always on Instagram. I also have a free Facebook group where we post a lot of different networking events, and we're facilitating a lot of different connections through posts and live meetings on Zoom and all these things. So there's a Facebook group where we spend a lot of time, and I can give you the link for that too, but it's called Activate. So between our Facebook group and Instagram, that's usually where I spend most of my time.
Brilliant. I'll make sure to link those in the show notes as well. Thank you so much. So I have a little quick fire round I do with my guests.
Yes.
Just to sort of get to know you on a personal level a little bit more, which is always fun. So if you're up for that, I've got a few questions.
I love it.
I'm actually going to add an extra one because I forgot to update my template. So I'll throw the curveball in to start you with.
Okay.
What is your favorite podcast that you enjoy listening to?
Ooh, my favorite podcast I enjoy listening to. There's one by Joanne Bolt, who's a good friend of mine. It's called The B Word. That's a favorite right now. What's the other one? Oh my gosh, I forget the name of it, but Amy Traw has a really good one too. When I listen to podcasts, I love like professional development podcasts.
Yeah, love that. Brilliant. And on the professional development side of things, potentially a professional development book coming up. So what is the favorite book that has made the most impact on your life thus far?
Oh my gosh. You know, a book I absolutely love, and it's something that there's two that I really, really love, but the one that is like the timeless favorite is You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero. I've read that book twice, and I think Brilliant. I'll probably read it a third time. I don't know why I don't know why I love it so much. I mean, I do know why, but like, it's just such a good book. The other one is Get Rich, Lucky Bitch.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all about have you heard of that one?
Yes. Yeah. I'm listening to her current new book, Chill and Prosper, right now. Denise Duffield.
Yes. Okay. I think she might be UK based, isn't she?
No, she's Australian.
Australian. Okay. I was going to say, I knew she wasn't US based, but I randomly found her book like on Instagram, like an Instagram story, like so random. Oh, wow. Love that book. Yeah. Love it. It's so good.
Yeah, that's one of her first ones, but Chill and Prosper is her current new book, and I'm enjoying that one just as much, so definitely one to put on your list.
I'm gonna have to add it.
Yeah, add it on. Brilliant. What's your go-to snack when you're in a hurry?
Oh my gosh, go-to snack. I love carbs. I love carbs. So usually like a granola bar. Yes. A granola bar. You know what I really love? Apples and peanut butter. And I can do that on the go.
Do you know what? I love it when a guest says anything to do with peanut butter, because peanut butter is my favorite thing. Favorite thing. So yeah, I'm with you. Apples and peanut butter go great together. Love it. I actually have apples and banana on my rice cakes. That's my go-to lunch. So yeah.
Okay.
So good.
Have you tried peanut butter on your banana?
Not just on the banana, but I slice the banana up on top of the peanut butter on the rice cakes, and that is perfect.
Okay. I was going to say, try it on I eat a banana, just smear some peanut butter on, eat the banana regular.
Oh, yeah. Brilliant.
So
I love it. I love it. And finally, what is your ultimate me time thing to do? If you get any
definitely my horses.
Quite busy. I was going to say.
Me time is relevant. It's funny because me time is like more work, but like my horses are a different kind of work.
Yeah.
Where like it doesn't feel like it, right? So I love being with my horses. I'm still riding for another like month or so. Brilliant. And the other thing I love to do, I love to be like outside in the summer. I find different waterfalls and I'll go to the different waterfalls. I love to just swim, like be in the water, whether it's a lake or the waterfall or the pool. So I try to get outside as much as possible when the weather is nice.
I love that. And there is something about horses. I have a network connection who actually works with horses and works with people with horses. And they're just such amazing, majestic creatures. So I can totally understand why that would be a brilliant use of me time. And I'm a water girl. So anything with water, put me there. I'm not so much I don't mind swimming in a pool, but I had a bit of a thing with the sea the last time I got in it to swim. So I'm a little bit, I'm all right if I can walk into it, but I ended up going down a slide into the sea, and it was the first time I've been in the sea for like years, and I was just like not ready for currents.
No, not at all. That's a totally different beast.
Yeah. So
like at least in a waterfall, you know where the water's going. You know, like that's what I like.
Yeah, absolutely. Love that. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Sarah. It's been a fantastic conversation. I will leave all Sarah's links in the show notes for you guys. Please head over and connect with her, and we will see you in the next one. Bye for now. Don't forget to hit those stars and leave a review of the podcast where you listen if you found value in what you heard today. It's a free way you can help the podcast reach more people just like you.